Hiya Toots. Hey guys, it's Mimi. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thank you for joining the Tootsie family. Woo woo! And if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back. You are always welcome. So last week, we read parts 1 and 2 to There's a Strange Newspaper that only gets delivered at midnight. And in today's video, we are going to get into parts 3 and 4. So if you're ready to get spooky, let's get to it. So guys, before I get into today's video, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my scheduling. So I have decided that I want to upload at least 3 times a week. So I will be uploading on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I want Saturdays to be a spooky Saturday upload. So things like this, like reading spooky stories, Halloween decorations, anything spooky, I want it to be on Saturdays. And that's like not just Halloween time, that's like always time. So this week, because I didn't want to keep you guys waiting on the second video to this story, I decided that this week I will upload 2 spooky videos. So today's spooky story, and then on Saturday we are going to do spooky Saturdays, and we will upload another spooky video. So I hope you guys join me for that, and without further ado, let's get into the story. There's a strange newspaper that's only delivered at midnight. Part 3. After the second paper arrived on Wednesday, I decided to keep a close watch on it. I tried taking more pictures, but it seems that trying to take that first picture ruined my cell phone camera. I'm looking into getting it fixed. I set the second midnight paper down on a work table and stared, watching it for any slight change. Hours passed. My eyes grew heavy. Exhaustion seemed to settle into every cell of my body, heavy as lead. It was 5 a.m. on Thursday morning when I first started to see it. There were wisps of black smoke rising from the black pages. I leaned closer, covering my nose and mouth with a face mask to avoid inhaling the smoke. It seemed like the black paper itself was burning up, but there was no fire. The pages were just beginning to curl up and float away, disintegrating into fine smoke before my very eyes. My phone rang. It was work. I ignored it. I had to keep looking. By noon, the cover page was gone. The pages beneath it were already curling up too. By 10 p.m., there was only 1 page left. By midnight on Thursday, it was gone. One day, the paper had stuck around for 24 hours, then disintegrated. Suddenly, I was very glad to have taken that picture. Broken cell phone, be damned. I went off to sleep and dreamt of black smoke and white ink. Friday, another paper was coming at midnight. I wasn't ready for another one. I was exhausted, scared, but also oddly excited. This was weird. Weird in a way unlike anything I have ever experienced. It was like there was a secret, invisible world that had existed beyond my mundane life. And now that I had stumbled upon it, I didn't want to go back. I didn't get reprimanded at work, but there was some tension when I logged on Friday. Whatever. They wouldn't understand. I'd like to see how they'd act if they got midnight paper on their doorstep. 11:50 p.m. I sat on my front porch. The front door shut behind me. The welcome mat a few feet in front of me. I'd swapped out the bulb above me for a new one just in case. At 11:55 p.m., the hairs on my neck stood up. There seemed to be strange electricity in the air. There was a chill too, one that felt like it went deeper than my skin. It was like wrapping around my bones. At 11:58 p.m., a metallic taste filled my mouth, like sucking on a penny. At 11:59 p.m., my eyes began to sting and water, as if I was standing in front of a bonfire. Then it happened. The light bulb didn't flicker, it just shut off, abruptly. I was ready. My phone was in my hand. With a few taps, I brought up the flashlight. A patch of darkness, even deeper than the one around me, appeared over the welcome mat. I brought the flashlight over it and could just about see the black bundle. Then my phone went from being cold to the touch to searing hot in the blink of an eye. I dropped it, hearing glass shatter. The odd thing was, I heard it before it hit the ground. The air around me seemed to disappear. I wasn't breathing oxygen anymore. I wasn't breathing anything. My eyes bulged. My throat spasmed in protest. Then the light popped back on, and it was done. The air around me seemed to disappear. I wasn't breathing oxygen anymore. I wasn't breathing anything. My eyes bulged. My throat spasmed in protest. The light popped back on, and it was done. The air around me was the same as it had just been moments before. I coughed, my lungs screaming for oxygen. I swallowed it in gulps, lightheaded, the dark tentacles of a migraine already wrapping themselves around my brain like a vice. I pushed through it. I needed to see if the paper was there. I needed to know if my interference had caused it to be taken away. I sighed. It was there. The same black bundle tied with the same black twine. I brought it to my dad's study, used the knife to cut the twine, and unfurled the rolled up papers. Again, it was one article, but it was longer this time. This is what was printed on the black pages. The new kid. Jailed teacher tells bizarre tale. Former English teacher Mark Bailey, found guilty of murder last winter, sat in the visitation room of a maximum security prison. He looked gaunt, pale, haunted. He was a far cry from the young, athletic man that was a constant presence on millions of television and phone screens across the nation. Bailey seemed to have it all. He had taught at Roslyn High School for almost a decade. He was well liked, with many students citing him as the reason they discovered a passion for literature. He was the coach of not only Roslyn High girls' volleyball team, but also the town's Little League team. He was married to his high school sweetheart, Holly Bailey, a kindergarten teacher. On the outside, his life was not just innocuous, but downright inspirational. It's a well-known fact that instead of traveling to Europe or Hawaii for their honeymoon, he and Holly opted to join the Peace Corps to volunteer in Africa. So where did it all go wrong? What transformed the Mark Bailey from 5 years ago, a well-loved coach and volunteer, into the Mark Bailey who must now be separated from the prison's general population for his own safety? The answer has a name: Stephanie Carson. Carson was a senior who attended Herrick's High School. She was popular, smart, the star player of the girls' volleyball team, and already accepted into several Ivy League schools. Stephanie's promising life was cut short when, after a few weeks of stalking so severe, she placed a restraining order on him. Bailey broke into the Carson family home and attacked her with a knife. Bailey's trial was a lightning-fast affair. The evidence stacked against him so completely it left no room for interpretation. Yet, there were many online who rallied to defend him, citing his strange, disjointed testimony as evidence for mental illness. "You don't understand," Bailey said in court. "She's not what you think. You'll see. Just wait for the new school year to start. If I had more time, maybe I would have put an end to it." After being reminded that Stephanie is now deceased, Bailey exploded into a series of bizarre statements and accusations, many directed at Stephanie's parents. After several months of being blocked by Bailey's court-appointed psychologist, we were able to secure an interview with him. Sitting behind the glass is a beige jumpsuit that seems to be several sizes too big. Bailey spoke into the phone mounted next to the window, his voice a distorted whisper. Almost immediately, as if knowing what we were there to ask about, he launched into his story. Her name was Monica first. Monica Campbell. So that's how I think of her. She was the new kid that year. She moved here from California, or so she said. She was instantly popular. Pretty, from a family with a lot of money. She was at the top of every class. Straight A's, 4.0 GPA. She came to the first volleyball practice and everyone could see she would become the best player on the team. She was in my English class too, and she seemed to know more than I did. Could quote Yeats on the spot. Oscar Wilde was her favorite though. She got into Yale. Stanford too. Went for Yale, for chemistry. Bright kid. She was even homecoming queen. There was something about her, like a spark. Monica was almost too bright. Strangely intelligent. She seemed to be able to learn things right away and remember every little detail later. My car broke down once, right in school. There must have been a dozen teachers trying to help out. Harrison, the science teacher, was fiddling with the motor when Monica walked right up. She looked down at the engine, rolled up her sleeves like an effing mechanic, and started working on it. She fixed it. The car started right away. She apparently spoke Japanese, German, French, Spanish. We could only verify the Spanish and the French, but she spoke them fluently. A few teachers cried when she left, saying they'd missed hearing her laugh in the halls. She made a big impression, obviously. I don't know about her parents. I think her mom came to school once or twice, dressed like she was attending the Oscars or something. But we didn't see her after that, or the father, not even at the graduation. Monica was valedictorian. It was the year after that things got weird. The first semester had just started when there was a new kid in school again. Her name was Natalie Creed. She moved here from California. She was instantly popular, pretty, from a family with a lot of money. She was at the top of every class, straight A's, 4.0 GPA. She came to the first volleyball practice and everyone could see that she would become the best player on the team. She was in my English class too, and she knew more than I did. Could quote Shakespeare on the spot. Emily Dickinson was her favorite. And she looked just like Monica. Everyone asked her if she was related to her. She said no. But there were rumors. Maybe she was a cousin or a lost sibling. Her parents didn't come to school either. She was valedictorian, the homecoming queen too. She got into Harvard and NYU. Went to Harvard for chemistry. It was weird. Everyone said so. But they seemed to forget right away. I was the only one who kept saying how strange it was. That made them look at me like I was crazy. Or worse. So I let it slide. The year after that, we were at a volleyball game at a different school. And there she was, again. Her name wasn't Monica or Natalie anymore. It was Jennifer Cook. She was the best player on that team. Better by far than anyone on ours. I knew something was wrong, but even asking about her made people look at me like I was sick. There are enough stories about teachers becoming obsessed with one of their students for all the wrong reasons, but it wasn't like that with me. She looked the same, she acted the same. She always went off to study chemistry. So, I followed her home. And the house was one of the biggest in town. And we're in Long Island. It wasn't Monica's house, but damn well could have been. Then I saw her, the mom, Monica's mom. I knew something was wrong, but when I told my wife, she told me that I was losing it. That I couldn't follow anyone home, let alone a high school student. I was a teacher, for God's sake. The year ended. When the new year started up, I went looking for her. I went to every school in the area and I found her. Her name was now Stephanie Carson. She looked the same as Jennifer Cook, the same as Natalie Creed, the same as Monica Campbell. It wasn't just her looks. She sounded like her, moved like her, played volleyball like her. I followed her home again. It was a different house, with the same tax bracket. I waited until nightfall, then snuck in. A window was wide open. There weren't any family photos on the wall, just art. The house was fully furnished, not a fake house or anything. They must have been moving for real. Nobody was home yet, so I looked everywhere. I had to find an explanation. The door down to the basement was open, and that's where I found it. It was like a lab. There were machines I couldn't even recognize, a freezer the size of the wall with frozen petri dishes and test tubes inside. There were also weird books. Astronomy, occultism, demonology. Then she snuck up on me. Quiet. She must have hit me with something because I blacked out. I woke up in the hospital, handcuffed to a gurney. The police were there. My wife wasn't. They said that Monica, Stephanie, was putting a restraining order on me. That I had been following her for weeks. They didn't seem to know I had broken in. Maybe she didn't want them to. My wife wasn't home when I got back. She didn't answer my calls either. A few weeks later, I went back to the house around 4 a.m. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew she would be asleep. Maybe I could get her to talk somehow. I wasn't really thinking straight. I broke in again, through the same window. I went down to the basement and it was empty. Totally empty. Just bare concrete and drag marks where things had been taken out. I was furious. She was hiding things to make me look worse. I could almost imagine her having those things taken out with a condescending smile on her face. I went up the stairs. I thought her room had to be one of the smaller ones, but when I opened it, it was all wrong. There were 2 sets of clothes in the closet. The bathroom was set up for 2 people. It was the parents' room. I checked the other small room, but it was completely empty. There was nothing on the walls, nothing on the carpeted floor, nothing in the closet. Only the master bedroom was left. But why would they give the master bedroom to their daughter? I opened the door. She was sitting up in bed. Oh my God. Waiting for me with a smile on her face. Ugh. I asked her who she really was. I told her I knew she had been in my class, in my volleyball team, in my school. She just said one thing. And it was enough for me to lose control. That wasn't me. I pulled her off the bed, dragged her down the stairs. I was going to show her the basement. You see? But it went wrong. She was faster than me, stronger than me too. She forced my fingers apart and rushed for the kitchen. Then she just waited by the knives, like she was inviting me to use one. So I pulled one out. She smiled again. So I stabbed her. Then again. Then again. She was still smiling when the police showed up. Later they said that she had called them, that she had gotten away for a few moments and called them from the bathroom. But that was a lie. She must have called them before I went up to her room. Her parents were at the trial, and that's when I knew. They didn't look sad, just annoyed. Like I had broken one of their toys. It was the parents, you see. They're behind this. I should have waited for them. I should have killed them instead. Bailey became frantic when the interview was coming to a close, like a castaway watching a ship fade into the distance. Look, it's up to you. Go to every high school in Long Island. You've got to find her. She'll be there. She's blonde, blue eyes. She must be about to graduate again. Follow her home. Get to the parents. Get them talking. You got to find out why. Bailey was found in his cell a few days later. He'd chewed through both of his wrists. What? The damage was so severe that he bled out before he got to the infirmary. Nobody involved with this publication fulfilled his last request, and we urge our readers to ignore it as well. I read through the paper a couple of times. Long Island, not too far from where I live. But I'd never heard of this case. A murder like that, a trial like that, involving a teacher and a student, I'd have heard of it. By the time I was done reading, it was almost 2 a.m. I collapsed into the bed and fell asleep, my mind still filled with the black pages, and with that shadow that had left them on my doorstep. I spent most of Saturday in front of my computer, typing different variations of Mark Bailey and the names he had given in the article. Nothing. I was only met with seemingly thousands of Facebook profiles. No articles, no headlines, no memorial pages. Yesterday, I turned my attention toward the first 2 articles. I scoured the internet, finding only medical ads and urban legend games. No mention of the ledge game, no mention of the removal doctor. I decided to go for a walk. It was late, almost midnight actually, but I didn't have to worry about that. The next paper was due Wednesday night. I walked toward the nice part of town, where there always seemed to be new businesses and new buildings going up. The cold air felt nice on my forehead, where the seeds of another migraine were already growing. Then I saw it. It was something so striking, so unmistakable, that it drove the pain out of my head in an instant of blinding shock. I was looking at one of the new apartment buildings that had gone up last year. It was already well populated. I could see the checkerboard pattern of lit up windows and dark rooms. Nothing out of the ordinary until you looked at the rooftop. There was a tiny silhouette standing there, at the edge of the rooftop, on the ledge. I rushed toward the building. I was maybe 1 block away. I wasn't thinking about the distance, about the difference in height, about the fact that my voice wouldn't be able to carry all the way up there. I was only thinking about that silhouette, about how it was almost exactly what I had pictured when I read my first midnight paper. The building's lobby was dark. The front desk appeared to be empty. The glass double doors were immovable. There was an e-card reader on the wall next to them. I couldn't get in. I backed up, standing in the middle of the street. I craned my neck, and there it was. The little shadow in the shape of a person standing on the ledge, quivering and shaking under the pressure of high-velocity wind. They were standing on one leg. The other was dangling over the edge. I started to shout, but the sound died in my throat because the person was already a blur. I closed my eyes, but I felt it anyway. I felt it more than I heard it. It wasn't just a bang, it wasn't just a crack, it was something you feel in your bones, something that stabs you in the stomach and scoops all the feelings out of your legs. When I opened my eyes, I couldn't bring myself to look at the body. I just watched the red rivulets snake their way into the gutter. The ledge game. It was real. It was real now. And that is the end of part 3. Oh my gosh. That was really creepy. That last newspaper article gave me chills. Alright, let's get into part 4. 11:50 p.m. I sat behind the front door this time. The last few days had been bad enough for me to be a little bit more cautious. I was still taking aspirin to starve off the migraine that started as soon as the porch light went out on Friday night. I wasn't taking any more chances. There have been many comments asking me not to be outside when the paper comes. That's maybe what caused the ledge game to become real. I don't know. I also don't know if the people who say that it was my act of reading papers that is changing things. But I can't stop. Not yet. I need to read the paper to understand it, to understand how much my father knew and how it affected him. I had lost touch with my dad. The funeral was hard on him, hard on all of us. He retreated after that. Wouldn't even want me over for Thanksgiving or Christmas. One thing he said back then that I've been thinking about was, "It's my fault." Did he mean the midnight paper? Did he think reading that had done something to Mom? Now he's gone too. The doctor said he sustained several injuries. Some of them were old, already healed. Self-harm was suspected, as was some sort of mental breakdown. When I got here, most of the mirrors were either covered up, removed, or smashed. His TV's screen was covered with cardboard and hidden under a comforter. I'm still looking through my dad's notebooks. He must have hundreds of them. Most don't even make any sense. Just scrambled words that I have a hard time deciphering because of his handwriting. 11:59 p.m. It was time. Once again, I didn't feel ready. Once again, I felt like I was doing something stupid, but I didn't have a choice. At midnight, on the dot, the porch light went out. Through the keyhole, I could see the already familiar patch of darkness form on the welcome mat. Then I blinked, and the lights were on again. There, where it always was a brand new edition of the midnight paper. I opened the front door and hesitated. I was looking at that bundle of bound black pages with the same kind of cautious respect reserved for dangerous animals and predatory pieces of machinery. You don't put your hand anywhere close to a meat grinder. You don't try to grab a rat or a raccoon with your bare hands. But I walked over and grabbed the midnight paper anyway. The second I felt its pages touch my skin, I thought that I should have worn gloves. Whatever. It probably didn't make a difference. I was going to read it, and that was probably worse. I repeated what was quickly becoming a sort of ritual. I took the paper inside, set it down on the work table in my dad's office, and used the knife from the kitchen to cut the twine. The paper unfurled itself slowly, and the headline popped out at me. The hunger, mass hysteria, or unknown condition. After a bizarre series of events that spanned only a few days, government officials and healthcare professionals are struggling to treat the residents of a small town in upstate New York. At their request, the name of the town is being withheld from all publications. It started slowly. A few strange reports started trickling into the social media accounts of many of the town's residents. Some were presented as cute. My little guy was so hungry, he got into the pantry and ate half of his new cereal box, wrote one mother. Others were presented as comedic. If I eat another burger, I'm gonna end up like that purple brat from Willy Wonka, wrote one girl. Lastly, on that first day, some people were writing in concern. My baby won't stop drinking milk. 4 bottles, and still crying like he's hungry. What should I do? It seemed that slowly, everyone in town was coming down with a monstrous case of hunger. Delivery orders skyrocketed. Supermarkets became crowded. With each passing hour, it seemed that nobody was immune to the sudden onset of a paradoxical hunger, and it was getting worse. People stuck at home ate through their entire bounties. Some even ate raw spices and garbage. Whatever was at hand, they tried to swallow anything to quell that bottomless, nagging, painful feeling in their stomachs. The town's residents hardly slept that first few nights, choosing instead to continue eating anything they could get their hands on. Soon, concepts such as self-restraint and societal norms seemed to crumble away. Restaurant staff left customers unattended and raided the kitchen and even the freezer, eating food and ingredients raw. Local businesses that served no food were abandoned, and those that didn't serve it were overrun. People could scarcely make it out of the front door, sitting on the sidewalks with their bounty and eating through it on the spot. The town's only hospital was filled to the brim. The lucky few who were able to get a doctor to themselves were put through a gauntlet of medical tests. Every possible avenue was pursued, from parasites such as tapeworms to neurological conditions to psychological breakdowns, and they all came back lacking evidence. The town's water supply was tested for anything out of the ordinary, with nothing to show for it. It wasn't long before violence erupted. Food was running out, and anything, even dog food, even the dumpsters behind butcher shops, even pet store cages, were now viable options. People were trading blows over scraps on the street. Soon, fists and blunt objects weren't enough. It wasn't long before someone pulled a knife or a firearm. But knives and firearms were to be expected, to some extent. What wasn't expected, what was downright unspeakable, was when people started using their teeth. It was less than a week before it happened, and once it did, it was as if a line was crossed. One person did it, so it became an option for everyone else. Bundles of discarded, bloodied clothing became a common sight. The residents were soon joined by several out-of-towners, concerned family members and friends, law enforcement agencies, medical experts. Most of these people were never seen again. And those that were had already joined in. Through it all, a few social media accounts remained active. Most of them were incoherent or entirely mute, simply liking anything related to food, and soon just liking anything that showed a person or a pet. One account, however, contained just enough coherent writing to quote in this publication. Okay, so I have to show you guys a picture of how this is being spelled out. So I'm going to insert it here while I read it. Everything you eat has a soul, the anonymous user wrote. You consume it when you eat it. We can eat much more now. Eat something and take it into ourselves. We can eat life itself if we keep going. Some are eating the ground and becoming this place. If the sun came down, we could eat it too. Reports from the town have since gone dark. Local law enforcement agencies have established a barricade around the area, effectively cutting the town off from the rest of the world. There have been sightings of the military as well, with some rumors even stating that gunshots and explosions have been heard. It's troubling then that there has been a trend of social media posts of uncontrollable hunger from surrounding towns in the area. Government officials have stated that there's nothing to worry about. These posts are part of a social media frenzy, a sick joke, said a representative whose name has since been pulled. The people in the town are being treated, and there's absolutely no danger of other towns succumbing to the same condition. That's the end of the article. And then the narrator continues. As soon as I was done reading, I backed away from my dad's desk as if I had suddenly caught fire. This one was worse. Worse than the ledge game. Worse than the removal doctor. Worse than the new kid. If this one became real, it was unthinkable. Horrible. I grabbed a garbage bag from the kitchen and used the knife to push the midnight paper and the pieces of twine into it. I took the bag into my dad's backyard and pulled the grill's cover off. The midnight paper made a dull smack as it landed on the grill's metal bars. I screwed the cap off and flipped the bottle over. Before the lighter fluid even left the nozzle, the black pages began curling up and breaking into tiny motes and floating away. I sprayed the lighter fluid anyway, but by the time it hit the grill, there was nothing left. The midnight paper had vanished in 2 seconds, breaking up into pieces so small I couldn't even see them fly away. I collapsed onto my dad's living room chair, with migraine already back at full blast. You were right. I shouldn't have read it. I should have listened to my dad, because when I turned the TV on, it was set to the news. And they were talking about several encounters with a strange man. A strange man who claimed to be a doctor. and it ends there. But it looks like he just uploaded part 5. I'm not gonna read that right now though. I think I'm going to read it for Spooky Saturday's video. So if you want to hear the rest, you're gonna have to come back on Saturday and see what the heck is going on. Every time he reads the paper, these events that he's reading about starts coming true. Crazy. All right, you guys, so that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are enjoying these spooky stories, and I hope you come back on Saturday to hear part 5. And also, I'm just gonna be continuing Spooky Saturdays as a video on my channel. So yeah, you come back, and I hope you guys are enjoying the series. And I will be posting again on Saturday. So don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button if you liked it, leave me a comment so we can chat and talk about the story. And if you didn't like the video, you can hit that thumbs down. I don't really care. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.